𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶 is a Portuguese video game commentator with 250,000 subscribers, best known for their Dark Souls 3 rage montage and their how-to videos in Smite, where they would take a lighthearted approach to and provide satirical commentary on the subject of their video. In 2020, 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴 began dating Australian YouTuber Hyojin, also known online as Squizzy. Hyojin is at this point very well known in the commentary community as a controversial figure with 1 million subscribers. This is because of the events that occurred in June of 2019, where 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶, another commentary YouTuber, was accused of SA by his ex-girlfriend, which resulted in YouTubers like Hyojin, 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶, and others showing their support with the alleged victim. However, after 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶's response that debunked the allegations, Hyojin and others received backlash for not apologizing and for defending the alleged victim, with some involved alleging that Hyojin spearheaded the rumor in an attempt to undermine 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶's reputation. In September of 2019, Hyojin did apologize for this event, though that apology is now lost. However, since then, Hyojin and 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶 have resolved their drama, and it doesn't seem to be an issue anymore. And though this is the most well-known allegation, this is not the only one. 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶 reports that Hyojin was accused of mistreating an animal in the past by Turkey Tom when he made a video that revealed in direct messages from an anonymous source that Hyojin had mistreated their animal, claiming that they had picked up and dropped the dog and then laughed about it. Hyojin responded to this allegation in a statement where they claimed they did not do this to any animal, and although many people didn't believe them initially, after Aiden Walker, who lived with the dog and its owner, came out with a Discord post, many people's opinions were changed, as it was reported that Hyojin didn't drop the dog on the floor, but instead reflexively pushed it off a couch when it jumped on her. Aiden confirmed this had happened with multiple other people due to the dog's poor training, and that the owner regrets posting this story about Hyojin to the public. And although this isn't the only allegation of this kind, as another person going by the name of 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶 also alleged that Hyojin mocked the death of their cat, this is the most major one, and at present it seems there's no evidence to prove this true. Hyojin has also faced other allegations surrounding toxicity, racism, and predatory behavior. However, none of them seem to compare to, have relevance to, or be even close to as extreme as the allegation released by 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶 today alleging Hyojin had abused them. I'd like to make it very clear before I begin this video though, that I'm just going to be reading you the information and providing very small comments surrounding it. I'm not going to give an opinion or otherwise present this allegation as true. This is alleged, and until we see conclusive proof or Hyojin responds, this should be solely left up to interpretation, and the audience should not jump to conclusions. Before I start the reading of this allegation, I would just like to mention that I make these videos for free for you, so if you'd like to support me, I'd just appreciate a subscription. I won't bore you with any more drawn out promotion, I'd just appreciate the support. Let's get right into it. 𝗔𝗹𝗹𝗲𝗴𝘁𝗶's allegation reads the following. For 2.5 years, I was trapped in an extremely abusive relationship with Hyojin/Squizzy that I both could not escape from and could not tell anybody about. I'm writing this now because I constantly see my ex popping up in my feed thanks to the wonderful Twitter and YouTube algorithm. I've brought this up to Hyojin directly, and while the apology they sent was nice and all, the trauma they've given me is well and truly for life. I initially planned to keep this private, but I reached a boiling point of how much I'm willing to lie to protect their image, both to my friends and my family. So it's about time I got this off my chest. Where do I even begin? When we started dating, it was fine. Great even. For a while. The first 6 months were mostly fine. Occasionally, they would do the classic redirect anger you're feeling from unrelated issues to your partner and berate me, but I kept being promised it would stop, and I believed it. They were, however, constantly materialistic, even at the cost of my own feelings. Constant arguments over what I wear, what I buy, and what I do on nights out were in order, because anything they would do would be a status thing, and they wanted me to act the same way so I wouldn't embarrass them. Anytime arguments would happen, they would always be my fault in one of two ways. Either I actually fucked up, or it was a problem they would cause. I would try and approach them and tell them how they hurt me and I wanted to talk about it, and it would instantly turn into emotional manipulation and accusations of, "You're just doing this to make me feel stupid. Just fucking leave then." I would end up apologizing and nothing would be resolved. Whatever I had brought up to them would be added to the growing list of repeated behavior. The main thing I would bring up to them was the anger redirection, which culminated around March 2020. They came to visit me a couple days before COVID started. Bad timing. After it did, we soon realized they had to go back to Australia before flights ran out. It was a very stressful time for everybody involved, but it certainly did not help that whenever my parents weren't in the room, I was an emotional punching bag, like all of it was my fault, and any help I suggested would just be responded to in screams. At one point, they screamed at me that I was fucking useless and forced me out of my own room so they could stream to raise money for the ticket. Naturally, I obeyed their orders and made them dinner while they streamed. When they came downstairs, I apologized to them. Even worse, my mum caught wind of how much they were screaming at me and was getting increasingly worried for them. My mother wasn't aware that Hyojin had just finished a fundraising stream or that Hyojin is fucking loaded. Thinking that they were some starving college kid, she offered to pay for the impromptu flight from Europe to Australia in full. Hyojin immediately accepted. I felt fucking gross. They only ended up paying my mother back exactly 1 year later, with me constantly reminding them for months. Impromptu tickets to Australia are not fucking cheap, turns out. I visited them for emergency reasons back in the summer of 2019 and still got fucking yelled at because I had a migraine from how hot it was at one point and asked if we could go home early so I could rest. They screamed at me saying I ruined their night and they didn't allow me to sleep in the bed that night. I was promised things would get better. What really made things spiral out of control was New Year's 2020. I had flown down to Australia for a couple of weeks to be with Hyojin and their family. On New Year's itself, we bought a tent and planned to be in a park to watch the fireworks. It was fun till they once again called me fucking useless and yelled at me because I was struggling to figure out how to build a tent while they sat there and did nothing. Massive scene in the middle of a very crowded park. It was fun. At that point, that shit was bouncing off me. A couple days later, on January 3rd, 2020, my partner had received an early press copy of a game and asked for help installing it. Turns out getting early copies to work on Steam is a fucking ball ache and neither of us could figure it out. The usual stuff happens, yelling, blaming me, etc., telling me to fuck off, so I just go and sit on their bed on the verge of tears. They proceed to, in the same room I'm in, get on Discord voice chat with their friends and start chatting like nothing is going on. I lie there in pure disbelief. I mustered up the courage to ask, "Are you actually doing this?" Bad idea. Very bad idea. Hyojin deafens the call. I told them what they did was fucked up and they hit me. Hard. So hard, in fact, that my head bounces off of the wall. We just stand there, motionless, and without saying a word, I ask, "What the fuck did you just do?" They start crying and storm out into a guest room in their house. This was the first moment I realized I was in an abusive relationship. For a year it was emotional, and now it was physical. So I did what most reasonable people do. I fucking panicked. I phoned up one of our friends who lived nearby, explained to him what just happened as quick as possible, and bless his soul, he saved my life. I asked him if I could stay with him for the remainder of my trip, and he instantly agreed. He immediately called an ambulance to their house and an Uber for myself so I can get to his place. I start gathering my shit as fast as I can so I can leave without Hyojin walking in on me packing. However, Hyojin did walk in on me packing and asked me what I was doing, but before I can answer, they realized. They start crying that I've already ruined their year. I told them I'm terrified of them. They run to the bathroom and grab a knife. At first, they point it at me, then at themselves. I lunge to try and disarm them, and they scratch up my arm pretty bad. I managed to get the knife, but it was at this point that their mother walked in. She started screaming at Hyojin, saying they're an attention whore, a drama queen, how they always do this, that they're sick in the head, and then she just walks away like she didn't see anything. Lovely woman. The police show up along with the ambulance. I tell them what happened, and they take Hyojin away. I take the Uber to my friend's place. Once at the house, he and his flatmates tried to get my mind off of this shit, but at this point, I'm catatonic. I was lost. I had no idea where my life was gonna go in the next couple of days. Hyojin texted me and said we were through, told me I ruined their life, that it's my fault they were gonna get a criminal record, and told me I don't love them. And I apologized. The police let them go with a warning. We spent an hour texting, and Hyojin managed to convince me that the whole ordeal was my fault. They forced me to pay for an Uber to take them to the place I'm staying at so they can drop the rest of my shit off, and they make me meet them outside so we can talk. I pretty much end up begging for them to take me back, and they do. We get back together, and I even end up helping them write a statement for the police so they don't get a criminal record. I was promised things would get better. Forgiving them for this was the worst mistake of my life. Letting that go basically opened the floodgates for every piece of textbook abuse you can imagine. How the mildest complication means I don't love them, constantly telling me that if I left, they would kill themselves, telling me my friends suck and I should cut them off, and then projecting that I'm somehow the one that hates their friends. My favorite thing about that was how one of the breakups happened because they had an argument in a Discord server with one of their closest friends and ended the convo on a sour note. Instead of working out privately, Hyojin asked me to berate the other guy. I said no, you guys are both adults and you should talk privately. Me yelling at the guy would just be counterproductive. And after I kept declining, they broke up with me. They would also do the classic move, using my insecurities against me. From using my car accident to belittle me in public service with people I barely knew, or bringing up friends of mine who had passed away to get a rise out of me during arguments. Incredibly normal behavior. For the last year of our relationship, Hyojin would constantly remind me that me reconnecting with old friends who had moved back to Belgium was making them fall out of love with me since we weren't spending every waking day together on Discord. And they'd get mad at me whenever I'd tell them what me and my friends got up to that day. For all of 2021, I was basically looking for a way out. I knew I couldn't break up with them because they would somehow use it against me. They are incredibly vindictive. For example, the guy I stayed with during New Year's, shortly after the New Year's incident, him and Hyojin stopped being friends. Because of this, Hyojin celebrated anytime they'd hear any negative news about the guy and was looking forward to hearing more, saying shit along the lines of hoping that they would regret the day they crossed Hyojin. I was also afraid of what Hyojin would do to themselves if I broke up with them for honest reasons, so I waited for something to happen that would allow me to end things in a way that seemed mutual. COVID was a fucking godsend in that regard and finally gave me the way out I needed, telling them that we should break up because it's getting harder and harder for us to see each other. We didn't talk for a month to let emotions settle, we got back in touch afterwards and it was fine until they asked me to never speak to them again because their new partner wasn't comfortable with them talking to their ex. I obliged. We got back in touch a couple months later and they even joined a Discord server with a lot of my close friends, but the more I reflected on my experience, the more terrified I was to have them this close to me, so I politely asked them to leave. They sent thinly veiled threats my way and removed me on everything. A week later, they found out I started telling my close friends everything you've just read and got mad at me one last time, calling my behavior childish, and even tried to convince me that I was never abused in the first place. I told them off, and here we are. That about covers it. I kept this hidden for so long because I was afraid of what they would do to themselves if people find out. They constantly told me, especially after the New Year's event, that if people found out about this, they would take their own life. My own brain can only go on for so long, covering for my abuser, and I was getting real tired of lying to my friends. Now, I've brought this up to Hyojin directly, and they've apologized to me and reassured me that they're seeking help. While that is nice to hear, I have a hard time believing them since the apology came 24 hours after calling me childish and the quite honestly shit attempt at gaslighting. Weeks before our breakup, they told me they'd lied throughout our entire relationship about seeing a therapist and being medicated because, quote, I lied to make you feel better, and let's be real, it feels like somebody else wrote it. Needless to say, their apology fell flat and I have no intention of ever reconnecting with them. And because this is Twitter and I'm obviously just doing this for clout, attached at the end of this text block is both their apology, where they acknowledged that all of this happened, their attempt to shut me down, and the text logs from after they were released from jail after the events of New Year's 2020. Abusers deserve no sympathy. If you're trapped in a situation like this, don't wait for things to get better. Leave and do not look back. I believed every promise, every time. Don't make the same mistakes I did. PunkDuck then attaches a Google Drive that I'll also link in the description, which provides more evidence to support the allegations they've made. In this Google Drive is a conversation from Hyojin where they talk about the criminal record, saying that Duck is okay with them being charged and having a criminal record, blaming Duck for this entire altercation, seemingly confirming many of the events Duck claimed happened, with Hyojin asking Duck if they were going to use this as evidence when they got to court. Hyojin would say they're not pleading guilty, and that they don't believe Duck loves them at all. Hyojin says they were put in jail for 6 hours, and put in cuffs in a police car, and said that all of this happened because of Duck. Within this conversation, Duck says Hyojin is not well, dangerous to themselves and others, and that they aren't breaking up with Hyojin. In this conversation, Hyojin would say they don't want to see Duck, and that they don't ever want to talk to Duck again, that they don't want Duck to engage with anyone in their circle including them, and that they want them to leave them the fuck alone for forever. With Hyojin then saying that Duck was guilt-tripping them, Hyojin saying they fucking hate Duck and don't love them, that their whole life is fucked, and seemingly confirming that the hit took place, with Hyojin saying that they told the police that they hit them, and Duck saying, yes I did. And if I didn't tell them that, I would have been charged with a felony. These conversations seemingly reinforce the allegations Duck has made, however, these are still allegations. As PunkDuck mentioned, they did get a Discord DM before they released this post from Hyojin. That message is an apology that reads, let me start this off by saying that I don't need you to reply. I get it. What I say doesn't matter, but regardless, I'm sorry. I owe you a very, very, very big apology. I hope it doesn't come off as calculated or ingenuine. I just need you to see it because it's the least that I can give. It doesn't mean anything, I know, but just know that I am genuinely sorry for everything I've done. Sorry for how I acted when you asked me so nicely to leave the server. Seems my entitlement and anger hasn't changed since you've known me. I took your patience for granted, mistreated you, and really took advantage of you. In the entire relationship, I don't think there was a single thing you've ever done wrong. I regret not talking about what occurred on New Year's more. I feel like that was something I should have talked to you about, and you definitely had every right to do what you did. I'm sorry for never being apologetic for that. I'm sorry for taking my anger on you in general. Misplaced anger is a problem I need to sort out. Everything you feel about me is deserved. deserved. You deserve to talk about it. I sent what you said to almost every one of my friends just to force myself to self-reflect. I've lost a lot of trust from them, but that's okay, because nothing that happens to me will ever undo what I did to you. I'm never gonna excuse what I did to you. You met me at a time where I never wanted to take responsibility and where I was toxic, paranoid, and horrible in general. I'm sorry for how I treated you whenever you got hurt, treating everything like a joke, making people uncomfortable on purpose just because I got a tiny laugh out of it. I'm sorry for hitting you, literally over nothing. Again, angry at something misplaced it on you. Feels like a lot of stuff that happened always fell back on you. You were always the fallback to my moods constantly. Nothing can undo what I've done. This message isn't to rekindle anything. As far as I know, I'm dead to you, which is what I deserve. I don't deserve a reply. I didn't type this up to weaponize a victim complex, which I did a lot. I think I do that in a lot of scenarios, which is why I reached out to literally everyone I've done wrong. I reached out to most of my friends, some ex-friends, and just want to let you know that even though this bridge is burned, I'm not planning to hurt anyone like that in the future ever again. Thank you for doing what you did. I think you saved a lot of people from how horrid I am. I see the person I am now. Clearly, I'm narcissistic, abusive, and I misplaced my anger and hurt everyone around me. I'm codependent, I weaponized my mental illness, and again, my victim complex is huge. There's no excusing anything. I'm the root of my own destruction. I've believed for so long that it was the world against me, but I was the problem. And it's shitty that it's taken this to realize that. So again, thank you for doing this. If you hadn't, I would have fallen back on the same pattern of earning validation by lying and acting like a victim, hurting people by continuing to never change and lose more people. I've lost people and that's completely okay. Everyone has their limits and I'm not asking to be forgiven at all. I just want to change, and again, I'm sorry it took this fucking long and this fucking much for me to wake up. I don't want to hurt any more people than I already have. And while this is a Discord message, so we can never really tell if this is true unless Hyojin confesses to it. If this is true, this would obviously be very concerning. And if they have really admitted this, Jesus Christ, that's concerning. I'll leave the link in the description if you'd like to read the full allegations, but for now, I think I'm gonna end this video here. With that being said, if you are new to the channel, please do consider subscribing. As I mentioned, I make these videos for free, and if this video informed you, I'm sure other videos on my channel will also be able to do the same thing. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time, peace.
Said she wanna rock with a nigga like me. I'm a stylish guy. Spend a little guap with a nigga like me. We can catch a fly. Said she wanna rock with a nigga like me.